So starting the test drive in this G80 here, I've driven the 3.3 liter V6, and this is my first time behind the 2.5 inline 4, and I will say that it still has plenty of pep in it, but of course you have 300 horsepower, 311 pound-feet of torque, so that's what I'd expect. But it's still surprising to think that a 4-cylinder is pushing this car the way that this one's being pushed. And the turbo pull is fantastic. It feels luxurious, but also feels relatively quick. But in the G80 here, now of course it doesn't ride like a boat like the G90 does, but it's still a pretty comfortable ride, pretty luxurious ride. And of course having the heated cooled seats is nice, having the ergonomic function is great, and then having that power thigh support. This is a driver's car, but it can also be something that you can chauffeur your kids around in, and you could use it to kind of chauffeur, but I'd rather have the G90. I feel like that's a true competitor to a Mercedes S-Class. And I feel like the G80 to me is between the E-Class and the S-Class, just in terms of the luxury you get, the power, the ride quality. But for me, this is more fun to drive, I think, than a G90. I'll put it that way. Because the G90 is quick, but where it rides so well, just incredibly smooth, it's not that much fun to drive compared to the G80. And of course, the G70 for me is the most fun to drive. But I'm gonna put it into sport mode now. And I'm just gonna show off the pull just a tad. And I think I'll have a little bit of space, so this should be fun. I'll test out the paddle shifters too. So the shifts are relatively quick, not necessarily snappy, but this is a luxury vehicle. And I mean, it's pretty quick. Yeah, just incredibly fun to drive. See if I can put on the Smart Cruise here. And that, along with the lane centering, or the lane following assist, I think is what Genesis calls it, just makes this so comfortable. It's a very good system, let me put it that way. And you're not supposed to take your hands off of the wheel, but in essence you can. Shouldn't have a lot of issue, but just be prepared to take control at any minute. And then something else is great is the blind spot monitor will actually pull up here as someone gets to my back right there. So that's pretty neat. It's just like everything is going on here on this screen. And you get that 3D effect too, which I like. It might be over the top for some who just want a clear picture, but again, with this kind of car, I think it suits it. Because like the G80, I think the screen is fancy, but it's also pretty sporty. Now I think price point wise, this is a pretty good option just based on the competition out there. I think it's right smack dab in the middle with some of the competitors, but I feel like this gets you a lot more options than you might find in a competitive Mercedes, BMW, etc. Now I have the car in eco mode now. What I like is the eco mode isn't like you find in the Nissans, Infinitis. Now it doesn't allow you to necessarily get full power on a light throttle, but it does allow you to accelerate with more ease, and it kind of keeps fuel economy at the forefront. Now it's not necessarily the top priority with this car, but it does keep you from burning through gas like you would in sport mode, but depends on what you're wanting at that particular time. I will say I like how the gauge cluster adjusted there. So I've got an all new picture here just more of a laid back format. And then when I put it into custom, you got something different. Comfort is there, and then sport, you get something else. So pretty interesting. And I also like how the side bolsters kind of stiffen up in sport mode too. Something I didn't notice till I went through all of the drive modes, because it's so subtle. And that's fantastic. So when you're in sport mode, the seat's ready for you, and it's not necessarily waking you up by just getting really tight on you. But I've said this before about the G80s. I really like the car. It's a fantastic bargain, in my opinion, for a luxury sedan. And with all that being said, this will bring me to the end of my review of this 23 G80 2.5 turbo.